everybody, my name is Miguel Andrés Rivero Campo, and today I'm going to talk about an amazing book. I really think it is an amazing book because it has something I would say mystery, horror, and some things that I love in a story. So for me it's just an amazing book. Its name is The Hound of the Baskervilles by Arthur Conan Doyle. So let's start with the contextual framework. So let me tell you a little bit of the author, who is Arthur Conan Doyle, and let's start saying that he was born on 22nd May 1859 in Edinburgh, Scotland. He studied at Edinburgh University and became a doctor. Conan Doyle, like Holmes, I would say, had very acute powers of observation, and he had a very practical mind, but also a great imagination. He developed an interest in spiritualism while he was a doctor in Southey. Joined the Society for Physical Research and for nearly, 30 years, carried out a series of experiments in telepathy and spiritual investigations. Finally, at the peak of his literary career, he wrote 2 books on spiritualism. The first one was The New Revelation, and the other one was The Vital Message. Conan Doyle rather resented the success of his Sherlock Holmes books, feeling that they overshadowed his more important historical and scientific books. This was never more apparent, I would say, than when he gave a lecture on spiritualism in Amsterdam shortly before his death in 1830. Ignoring the lecture title, many of the questions from the audience were about Sherlock Holmes. Conan Doyle at that time refused to answer them and told the audience he had nothing more to say about the detective or his cases. So we can see how important, or more than important, how famous are those books of Sherlock Holmes. Also, as a gender, we have that The Hound of the Baskervilles is a mystery or a suspense novel. But as a subgender, we have a classic police movement. As a movement, we have the Industrial Revolution, and we are going to talk a little bit more about it later. Now, as a literary context, we have modernism. So we have, as a literary context, modernism, but it is not just for a literary context, but also as cultural context. So modernism is a literary and a cultural international movement which flourished in the first decades of the 20th century. Modernism is not a term to which a single meaning can be described. It might be applied both to the content and to the form of a word, or to either in isolation. It reflects a sense of cultural crisis which was both exciting and disquieting, in that it opened up a whole new vista of human possibilities. So that means that with that movement, people had more possibilities to create. So they were like in a freedom. They were free to create in different ways, at the same time as putting into question any previously accepted means of grounding and evaluating new ideas. Modernism is marked by the experimentation, particularly manipulation, and by the realization that knowledge is not absolute. So, in that way, people had a lot of possibilities. Now we have the historical context, and in this part, we're going to talk about a movement, and this movement is the Industrial Revolution. Well, the movement of Industrial Revolution was a period from the, I would say, 80s to the 20th century, where major changes in manufacturing, in mining, transport, agriculture, technology, all of those had a profound effect on the socioeconomic and cultural conditions starting in the United Kingdom, then subsequently spreading throughout Europe, North America, and eventually the whole world. So as we can see in those periods, more specifically in this movement, there were big changes, and as we saw in the literary context, there was almost big changes that led the people be free, or more like freedom. They were in a period of freedom because they were creating new things because they could at that time. So that period is a period of changes. Religious context. Well, as a religious context, we have spiritualism. In religion, it is a movement based on the belief that the part souls can interact with the living. Spiritualists thought to make contact with death, usually through the assistance of a medium or a person believed to have that ability to contact spirits directly. Some mediums work well in a trance state, and some claim to be the catalyst of various paranormal physical phenomena, including the materialization or moving of objects, through which the spirits announced their presence. So at that age, they were believers of that kind of things. That's why this book has that relevance, because they thought there was a spirit, a hound, at that age. Semantic framework. So, Master Prize. I think this book represents what people believe, or the belief of people at that time. It is an amazing book which mixes the horror and the mystery and also the human, and we can see why it was so popular. It was not just because of his gender, suspense, mystery, but because at that time people had faith in spiritual. They really believe. Then I would say Arthur gave them right through his mystery books what they really wanted to hear, to read, to believe. As themes, we have evil and supernatural. This is one of the main themes in this book. And I would say that though they seem to have little respect for the present or for the peasants, in this case, everyone from the book are led to think that perhaps the Hound is just a curse and nothing can be done to stop it. So basically, this is the first theme: protection. And we can see how Holmes and Watson are all the time trying to protect the Sir Henry's life. It's almost the whole story trying to do that. So protection is one of the themes of this book. We have also detention, and this is because Holmes is a detective. Sorry. So that's why we can see detention as a theme because he is all the time trying to solve the mystery. Linguistic framework. Figures of speech. The first one is a metaphor. It may be that you're not yourself luminous, but you are a conductor of light. Metaphor. Now we have a simile. You look like a general who is planning a battle with his chief of the staff. Simile. And once again, we have a metaphor. A diver in science, Mr. Holmes, a picker up of shells on the shores of the great unknown ocean. This is a metaphor. Arthur Conan Doyle, in his novel The Hound of the Baskervilles, once the British citizen, a person who believes, a person of faith, but not also a person who just believes, but a person who tries to find answers for everything. He also proposed a good person, a person who is thinking about the good of others, besides that fight the devil. As a conclusion, this is not just an amazing novel of mystery or suspense, but a novel who describes how people or how strong was the belief of people at that age on the in spiritualism.